So good day everyone. Welcome to the evolution and diversity of land plants. So let us first discuss what do we mean by non-vascular plants. So on this topic, we focus on the non-vascular plants, which is the first step of the introduction to land plants. So to start off, we all know that the land plants all belong to the group known as Embryophyta, also known as embryophytes. So these land plants first colonized the land 400 million years ago during the Silurian period. And now we can say that all these land plants now dominate the earth. Now we have here a cladogram showing the ancestral alga and then its groups. So if we are talking about land plants, we are focusing on embryophytes. As we can see, embryophytes are the land plants, which represents the most recent plants that have evolved on the planet, as you can see here in the cladogram. And then it belongs also to the kingdom Plantae. Okay? So they belong to the kingdom Plantae, and they also belong to the group of Streptophyta, where it also includes the charophytes. So Streptophyta includes those organisms that has twisted sperms, which is considered to be an unnatural grouping. So apart from that, Streptophyta also includes or is included to the group of Viridiplantae, which is now including the Chlorophyta. So as I've said a while ago, Viridiplantae is the group of green plants that includes the chlorophytes. And then as you can see here, chlorophytes is the one, it is closely related to the algae known as the Rhodophyta, also known as the red algae. So together, red algae, chlorophyta, charophytes, and bryophytes belong to the supergroup Archaeoplastida. Okay, here in this cladogram, it shows here the phylogenetic relationship of the land plants and their closely related species. As I've said a while ago, the Viridiplantae or Chlorobionta will include all the green plants or mostly the land plants. So under Viridiplantae or Chlorobionta, it includes the group of chlorophytes and that of the streptophytes. The chlorophytes will include the green algae, which is a paraphyletic group, because some of the green algae also is included to the group of streptophytes. As I've said, streptophytes are the ones that consist of organisms having twisted sperms. And then, under streptophytes, apart from some groups of green algae, it also includes the group of charophytes. And then for the charophytes here, it includes the Polytomus group of Coleucaidae and that of the Corales. So as you can see here, since they have the similar point here or origin or branch, they are said to be polytomy. Okay, so there is a need for further study to be able to know the correct placement of these species. So charophytes will also include that of the land plants or the embryophytes. Okay, so in this cladogram, it doesn't only show the phylogenetic of the land plants and the closely related species, but what is important here is the unique green plant chloroplast features that is a characteristics of the Viridiplantae or Chlorobionta. Okay? So these are the unique features of the green plants. So yung cellulose in cell wall may have evolved earlier and thus not a synapomorphy for Chlorobionta alone. So this characteristic is not included, okay? The cellulose in cell wall, because there are some algae such as the red algae and that of the brown algae which also contains cellulose. Okay? So here we have the unique green plant chloroplast features. So let's start off first with the chlorophyll B. Okay, so chlorophyll B, so chlorophyll A is ancestral. So everybody has chlorophyll A, which is the main pigment. But apart from chlorophyll A, so from here, from Viridiplantae upwards, they have what we call the chlorophyll B. So in addition with this chlorophyll A, they have chlorophyll B. Okay? Green plants also contains chlorophyll B. Apart from that, they also have here the stylocoids that are stored in grana, okay? Which is actually the first in the green plant. So they only emerge on this group. And last, we also have here the starch. Okay? Remember that the starch from previous descendants is different from that of the starch of these plants. Okay? The starch is actually found in the chloroplast. So in other organisms that is not related to green plants o yung medyo malayo sa green plants, their starch is not found in their chloroplast. They are found elsewhere. But here, the true starch storage compound is now found exclusively inside of the chloroplast. Okay, so here we have here another distinct characteristic of the Viridiplantae. So now this is a characteristic that is only present from this group up to the land plants. So that would be oogamy. When we say oogamy, so this is actually an extreme form of anisogamy. So plants or those organisms resembling or having the characteristics of oogamy, they usually have what we call gametes that is differ in both size and form, o kaya they are different in that of the behavior. So some of which contains flagella. For example, yung sperm cells, they contains flagella. While that of yung egg cells, it doesn't contain any flagella. The sperm cells are motile, while that of the egg cells, that is non-motile. So that means the gametes are unlikely or very different from one another. So if the gametes are very different from each other when it comes to their form, size, and behavior, we call that characteristic as oogamy. Okay, so next, we also have here the cell wall. Okay, cell wall that is present, that we can see here the cell wall, and then we also can see here the movement of the chloroplast. So cell wall is a characteristics of true plants. Okay, so by the way, this is an example, or this is the specimen is known as Elodea, if you remember our previous class in botany. So now, when we are talking about cell wall, and then we're talking about chloroplast, let us now talk about how did this chloroplast evolve. Okay, actually chloroplast, as we have discussed previously in our topics, chloroplast came from an ancestral photosynthetic bacterium or a type of cyanobacteria that was evolved by this eukaryotic cell, also known as a heterokaryotic prokaryotic cell. Okay? Hindi siya tinatawag na eukaryotic cell, but a heterokaryotic prokaryotic cell that eventually, upon ingestion of the cyanobacteria, becomes photosynthetic eukaryotic cell. So the process wherein they are able to engulf one organism into its system, and then this organism actually lives inside the other organism, is known as endosymbiosis. So endosymbiosis plays a vital role actually in the explanation of the diversity of eukaryotes. So endosymbiosis, because of the engulfing, okay, of one cell to another, nagkaroon ng variety yung mga eukaryotes. So just like this one, chloroplast may have evolved from the engulfing of the heterokaryotic prokaryotic cell it engulfed a cyanobacteria, which is here said to be an ancestral photosynthetic bacterium known as a cyanobacteria. So here, if you look at now your chloroplast, you can see here a double membrane. Meron siyang outer and inner membrane. And then you can see here the overlapping thylakoids. Okay? So this actually forms what we call the granum or grana. And then when we say stroma, these are the spaces found on the chloroplast. Remember, what is important with this one is because the thylakoids stuck in the grana is one of the unique green plant chloroplast features. So this is actually one of the first. It happened first on the green plants. Okay, next. So as I've said a while ago, remembering the oogamy, this is the process wherein, or this is the characteristic wherein the male and the female gametes are very different in their form and structure. So we have here two cycles. We have here the isogamy and that of the oogamy. So how do they different from one another? So when we say isogamy, this is actually a sexual reproduction by the fusion of similar gametes. So as you can see, the property here is, or the characteristic is isogamy, because the male and then the female gametes are indistinguishable with one another. They have the same form, having the same structure, having the same flagella. So they have same morphology, size, and then the shape. And then the fusion of that, or the fertilization of that, will result into a zygote. So this sexual reproduction is known as isogamy. Whereas pagdating sa oogamy, there is a sexual reproduction wherein the fusion is involving two different gametes. So as you can see here, the one that is flagellated is only the sperm, while the egg is non-flagellated. Mobile si sperm, while the egg cell is immobile. Okay? So these are the two characteristics of the gametes wherein they behave differently, and they are very different in their size and shape. As you can see, the egg is larger compared with that of the sperm. So you call this property as oogamy. So that is one of the characteristics of the higher forms of the land plants. Next, we also have here the three different types of life cycle. We have here the diplontic, haplontic, and then haplodiplontic. So how do we differentiate one from the other? So when we say N, this will be your haploid stage. And then yung 2N, this will be the diploid stage. If you can see the diplontic, this only occurs in animals. So when we say diplontic in animals, this is a type of life cycle of organism which is dominated by what we call the diploid multicellular organism. Okay? They are dominated by this diploid stage. So usually the diploid zygote will be dividing through the process called mitosis, forming a cell mass. Okay, here is your diploid stage of zygote dividing through mitosis, and then they form a cell mass of diploid cell that form the multicellular organism. Okay, so the cell of these diploid organisms will divide by meiosis, and then they form the haploid gametes. And then once the gametes, the haploid gametes, fuse together or fertilize, they become again another zygote. Then the zygote will again divide through mitosis, forming the diploid multicellular organism. So in that stage, we call this one as the diplontic stage, wherein again, it is dominated by diploid stage or yung diploid multicellular organism. How about yung haplontic stage? So in this life cycle, the dominant stage here is the haploid or haploid single cell or multicellular organism, or what we call the haploid gametophyte. Okay, so the diploid sporophyte here, so here is the diploid sporophyte. This is only represented by the zygote. Okay, so this is only represented the zygote, which is actually diploid. So the zygote will divide meiotically, as you can see here, to form haploid cells, which undergo mitosis. So in this case, haploid spores. Okay, and then they undergo mitosis to form the multicellular haploid organisms. Okay, so this type of life cycle is now exhibited by most fungi and some algae. So as you can see, or to set an example, most mushroom are undergoing haplontic life cycle. Okay. Next, we also have here the haplodiplontic. So for the haplodiplontic, wherein it is exhibited by plants, most plants, and some algae, this is actually the intermediate, kaya nga siya haplodiplontic. So sometimes we can also refer this one as diplohaplontic. So whichever is the same. So this is the intermediate condition, okay, between haplontic and diplontic life cycle, wherein both the sporophyte and gametophyte stages are free-living and multicellular. So, meron tayong haploid multicellular organism, and then we have here the diploid multicellular organism. Okay? So, both are free-living and multicellular, and they have different dominant phases. Okay? They have different dominant phases. So, example of which na lang na yung mga kelps. Okay? So, this haplodiplontic life cycle is characterized by what we call the mitotic division in both the diploid, okay, itong diploid zygote, okay, and haploid meiotic spores, which actually produces the distinct and sometimes free-living sporophyte and that of the gametophyte. Okay? So here we can see here the haplodiplontic life cycle in plants. So if you are to look at this one, you see here it is the sporophyte or the diploid stage, while the gametophyte is the haploid stage. Again, sporophyte, diploid, gametophyte or haploid. So as you can see here, we are able to see here the charophytes, which exhibits oogamy. So yung oogamy, they are exhibited by everyone here. Yung bryophytes, monilophytes, gymnosperms, and then the angiosperms. So what is the characteristics of charophytes when it comes to their life cycle? So most of it are dominated by the gametophyte stage. And then they are also having what we call the haplontic stage. So most of it are more of haploid stage. Kaya nga gametophyte stage, dominant ang gametophyte o yung haploid stage niya. Kaya they are undergoing haplontic life cycle. And then once you go with the bryophyte stage up to angiosperms, they are already undergoing haplodiplontic life cycle. Okay? So remember that oogamy is a common characteristic. Okay? Common characteristic of everybody here. And then when we say here all sporophyte, this is when all the sporing forms or the spores become a way to become a what we call the megaspore. Meron na rin siyang mga microspore. So as you can see here, we have here the bryophytes. Meron siyang gametophyte stage and it already has the sporophyte stage. That is what we meant by having a sporophyte stage for bryophytes. And then for monilophytes, okay, we have here what we call heterospory. Ito yung sinabi ko kanina na the spores actually becomes megaspore or microspore. Kaya siya tinawag na homospory. Okay? The spores could be megaspores or microspores. Below that one, these are species that is characteristics niyan yung mga homospory, wherein they are similar in their sizes and shape. Unlike yung heterospory, they are having microspore and megaspore. Okay? And next, when we go with the, now let's go with here. We have here the seeds. So seeds are only present in gymnosperms and that of the angiosperms. So gymnosperms, so most of the stage here, yung most of the cycle, life cycle of the gymnosperms are in sporophyte stage. And then, konti na lang yung nagiging gametophyte stage na. Up until you go to the angiosperm, wherein most of the life cycle are undergoing sporophyte stage. Nasa sporophyte stage siya, pero konti na lang yung kanyang gametophyte stage. Okay? So again, here, we have here the seeds, wherein the evolution of the seeds started with that of the gymnosperm. And then when we say spinogamy or non-motile sperms, sperms are usually carried through the pollen tube that is developed. So this is a condition wherein there is yung pollen tube or development of the pollen tube just started, wherein the sperms are carried through them, and that is where they develop. And then when we say double fertilization, which is a unique characteristics of angiosperm, this involves use two sperms. The reason why it's double, one sperm will fertilize the egg to form the zygote, while the other sperm will fuse with another two polar nuclei that forms the endosperm. Okay? So that is what we mean by double fertilization. Dalawang beses nagkakaroon ng fertilization, and that involves two sperms. And then as you can see here, the decreasing size among the gametophytes or the haploid stage, and that will be the increase in the size in the sporophyte, the diploid stage, as you become advanced. Habang nagiging advanced yung mga plants, nagde-decrease naman yung kanyang gametophyte stage, nag-i-increase naman yung kanyang sporophyte stage. Okay? So, do we have, okay. Next, we have here Charales. So, this is actually order Charales under the charophytes. Okay? So, this order Charales also, as I've said, they exhibit oogamy. So, as you can see here, this colloquiate, Nitella and Chara, these are the members of the order Charales. So, as you can see here, we have here we actually call this one the mucule, which contains the oogonium, which contains the eggs inside. So, the eggs are actually non-flagellated. And then here, we have here the globule, which contains all the flagellated sperm cells. We can also term this one as antheridium, which contain the sperms. So in this kind of oogamy, so the sperms are the only ones flagellated, while the egg cells are non-flagellated. So how do the sperms usually go to the egg cells? So they usually use water to carry the sperms into that of the egg. Okay? So that's the magic about that one. Okay, next, how about what we call plasmodesmata? So from the charophytes above to the lamplights, they have plasmodesmata. So when we see plasmodesmata, okay, here is the plasmodesmata. They are actually small channels. They are small channels that directly connect one cytoplasm of neighboring plant cell to another plant cell. So they actually establish living bridges between that of the cells. So these plasmodesmata are actually interruptions in the cell wall of adjacent cell. Pero what's the importance of this plasmodesmata? They actually allow cell-to-cell communication. Okay? It allows cell-to-cell communication by transferring molecules and small organelles from one cell to another. And then this plasmodesmata that is found in some green plants, they are also made up of cell wall that is cellulosic. Next, we have here the derived traits of the plant. So there are actually 5 key traits that appear nearly in all land plants but are absent in charophytes. So these are the key traits or the 5 characteristics wherein we separate land plants from that of the charophytes. So how do we, when asked the question, where do land plants or how do land plants differ from charophytes? So these are the answers. So one, it has alternation of generations. Second, it is multicellular, mostly are multicellular, having dependent embryos. They have a walled spores produced on sporangia. It also contains multicellular gametangia, and they have what we call the apical meristem. Okay, so these 5 key traits that is found on land plants are very unique to land plants, not found in charophytes. And then, to add to this one, most of the, or these traits are actually found in embryophytes or land plants, and they actually begin with that of the liverworts, hornworts, and that of the mosses. Okay? So those 5 characteristics begin with these 3 non-vascular plants known as the liverworts, hornworts, and mosses. Actually, this 3 is the focus of today's discussion. They are known to be the non-vascular plants. If it's a vascular plant, they are known to be tracheophytes. Remember that the embryophytes will include the non-vascular plants and that of the vascular plants known as tracheophytes. Okay? So under these embryophytes, these two groups of these two major groups, the vascular plants, and then we have here the non-vascular plants. And then under non-vascular plants, we have here what we call, or sorry, under vascular plants, we have here 2 groups again. We have here the monilophytes and that of the spermatophytes. And then, so in monilophytes, that will include this species or this genus. And then how about spermatophytes? Spermatophytes are also known as the seed plants or the plants that contains the seeds. So as you can see here, so these spermatocytes or seed plants is divided again into 2 groups, and that would be the gymnosperms and that of the angiosperms. Okay, so the gymnosperms and that of the angiosperms. Angiosperms that is said to be the most advanced among all other land plants. So as you can see here, these are the characteristics that define each group, okay, of embryophytes or land plants. So as you can see here, yung mga, for example, here the monilophytes here, okay, you can see here their vascular tissue that firstly develop. So sa liverworts, hornworts, and mosses, since they are said to be non-vascular plants, they do not have any vascular tissues. So saan nag-start yung development ng vascular tissues? It started with that of the monilophytes. Okay? And then for the spermatophytes, they have what we call the woods and then the seeds. And then when we go with that of gymnosperms and angiosperms, angiosperms has the development of flower and that of the fruits. Actually, this is the trend that we usually follow in the group of plants. Okay, so they have the same thing in common. Together with the green algae, they all have green plant chloroplast o yung presence ng chloroplast. And then when we say cuticle, gametangia, embryo, yung sporophyte stage, they're all present with that of the embryophytes. having independent sporophyte, and then xylem and phloem vascular tissues are only found on the tracheophyte. So they are not found on these three groups of non-vascular plants. Wood and seeds, on the other hand, is only found in spermatophytes. They are not found in monilophytes. And then the development of flowers and fruits are only found now in angiosperms. They are not found in gymnosperms. All right. So what we have here are the apomorphic characteristics of embryophytes. So these are the characteristics that actually bind all embryophytes. Okay, they are the ones that bind the characteristics. So let's us go first with that of the alternation of generation, sporophyte or embryo. By the way, if you notice, these are different from this one. So the reason for this is because this cladogram is the most recent phylogenetic relationship with the embryophyta that was published in 2018. Okay, ito na ngayon yung bago. So here, let's start with this one, the alternation of generation. So usually the plants undergo this both stage, sporophyte generation and that of the gametophyte generation. For example, we will be starting with the spores, okay? So these haploid spores. So we can begin with the production of the spores wherein it is a product of haploid cells, okay? So they undergo mitosis, growth, and differentiation to become a full gametophyte body, which actually undergoes again mitosis, growth, and differentiation. And then once they undergo mitosis, growth, and differentiation, they now form gametangia, okay, known as the archegonium and that of the antheridium. So these are the characteristics, or this gametigania are the ones that bears the gametes. Kaya they are said to be oogamous or oogamy because the gametes that they bear, the egg and then the sperm, are actually very different in their size and their form. So archegonium bearing the eggs, antheridium bearing the sperm. So eventually, they will undergo fertilization. So upon fertilization, they will exit the gametophyte generation or the gametophyte stage because they will be forming a diploid zygote. Okay? So this diploid zygote will undergo the process of mitosis, growth, and differentiation to become an embryo. And then embryo again will undergo mitosis, growth, and differentiation, becoming a sporophyte body. And then this sporophyte body will again undergo mitosis, growth, and differentiation, becoming the sporangium. And then this sporangium, again, will undergo mitosis, growth, and differentiation, becoming the diploid sporocyte. Okay? So finally, the sporocytes will undergo meiosis. So upon undergoing meiosis, they will now be leaving their sporophyte generation, yung diploid stage nila. So once they undergo meiosis, they form now what we call the haploid spores. Okay? Remember that the sporophyte is only allowed for many propagules or spores that is produced. Sporophyte, which is diploid, shields again deleterious recessives. Okay? So again here, so going back by the way here, we have here the gametophyte generation and that of the sporophyte generation. So when egg and sperm unite or they fertilize, they enter the sporophyte generation, whereas if a sporocyte undergoes meiosis to form haploid spores, it now enters the gametophyte generation. Okay? By the way, we also need to add that archegonium and antheridium is the term not used in angiosperms. So the one used in angiosperms are ovary and anther. We don't use anymore Archegonium and Antheridium when we are already referring to angiosperms. Next, another characteristic that is an apomorphic characteristic of embryophytes is the presence of the cuticle. Okay, so as you can see here, the cuticle serves as a protection to the environment. Okay, so it's, if you can see here, it is the outermost layer of plants. It is found on the outermost layer of plants, which mostly covers yung leaves, yung fruits, yung flowers, and then the non-woody stems of higher plants. As you can see here, diba, they cover even the epidermal cells. So the function actually is to protect the plants against extreme or drought, extreme temperature, UV radiation, mechanical injuries, at saka yung mga pathogenic pest infection. That will be the work of the cuticle. That's why it is the outermost layer of the cell. Okay, that would be the cuticle. Another characteristic now is the presence of parenchyma. Okay, so parenchyma is a solid mass of tissue. So parenchyma is one of the primary tissues in plants. They are said to be elongate to isodiametric when it comes to their shape, and they have a primary cell wall, only or rarely a secondary wall. So what differentiates parenchyma from the other plant tissues or plant cells? They are alive at maturity. And because they are alive, they are capable of continued cell divisions. Now, what is the significance of the shoot tip here? Most of the shoot tip is composed of the meristematic regions. Okay? And these meristematic regions is known, are composed of cells known as the parenchyma. Okay, so here we have here this examples of apical meristem. We have here the root apical meristem, wherein the root is usually below the ground. Kaya siya tinawag na RAM, root apical meristem. If it's above the ground, we call this apical meristem as the shoot apical meristem, wherein the root is above the ground. Next, we also have here the antheridium and the archegonium. So as I've said, these are gametangia. So they are which the gametes are developed. So the presence of antheridium here, okay, and then the presence of archegonium. So as you can see here in the antheridium, they contain a sterile, okay, a sterile jacket layer. Okay, so this is actually a layer of cells that protects or surrounds the entire antheridium, and they will never become a sperm cell. Okay? They will never become a sperm cell. The sperm cell is inside, and they are protected by this jacket layer or a sterile jacket of cells. The reason why we are explaining this one, because in the case of some protists, okay, the entire antheridium becomes the reproductive cell. Wala siyang protection, walang sterile jacket layer that will never progress becoming a sperm cell. Okay? With other organisms, lahat nagiging sperm cell. Okay? How about here in your archegonium? So it also contains this jacket of cells. Okay? But comparing with that of the antheridium, ang archegonium, it only contains a single cell. Okay? So this single cell that is actually protected, and that is only found on the base of the archegonium. Okay? Now, apart from this, there is what we call a neck o yung canal cells. This is where the sperms are able to travel to reach to the egg. So they are protected, but they have a canal in between so that the sperm can actually travel here going to your nuclei or to your egg cells. Next, we have here the 10 phyla or yung diversity of extant plants. There are actually 10. So under non-vascular plants, we have here the 3 phylum Hepatophyta known as liverworts, phylum Bryophyta known as mosses, and phylum Anterosophyta known as the hornworts. When we go with the vascular plants, or the tracheoplants, they are divided into seedless and seed plants. With seedless vascular plants, that would include phylum Lycophyta, known as the Lycophytes, and the phylum Monilophyta, known as the Monilophytes. Okay? And then when it comes to the seed plants or yung mga gymnosperms, they are divided into gymnosperms or angiosperms. So the gymnosperms is composed of the following phylum: yung Ginkgophyta, Cycadophyta, Metophyta, and Coniferophyta. Ginkgophyta, the genus is what we call ginkgo, and it is a monotypic species. Meaning, isang species lang dun sa isang genus. And we are very familiar with Ginkgo biloba. Okay, that is the species under this genus. And then we have here the 130 species of cycads, 75 species of metophytes, and 600 species of conifers. And then last, for the angiosperms, we only have one phylum for that. That would be the Antophyta. So this is the phylum of flowering plants. And as you can see here, it is the most diverse, or the number of known species is up until 250 species. Ganun siya karami, and it is still waiting to be discovered. So here, we are seeing here the phylogeny of the embryophytes. We have here the origin of the land plants, wherein they originate mga usually around 450 to 400 or 500 million years ago. So that is where the origin of the land plant. Siguro nasa around 450, and then for 500, siguro around 475 million years ago. So these land plants might also includes the liverworts. Unahin muna natin liverworts, mosses, and that of the hornworts. And then, right after that one, there is already the existence of the vascular plants. So they exist between 450 to 400 million years ago. And that would be including the lycophytes, monilophytes, and that of the seed plants. And then the origin of the seed plants usually happened 300 million years ago. Okay, 300 million years ago, and they are said to be the most advanced, right? So they are said to be the most advanced. And the angiosperms actually is deriving from the gymnosperms. So what can you see here as well? We have here the green algae. So this green algae is the ancestor of this land plants. And then next, we go now with the non-vascular plants known as the bryophytes. So that would be including the hornworts, the mga Antheracephyta, mosses also known as the bryophyta, and liverworts known as the Hepatophyta. Okay, so these are the three groups of bryophytes. So when we go with the diversity, or how are they actually grouped together, there are two opinions to that. Meron tayong lumpers notion. When we say lumper notion, you become a lumper. So you focus on the similarity of their characteristics. So yung ano ba yung similarity nila? So if they have a single division or a single species, they lump all the groups into that single division. And then they focus on the similarity. So in a lumpers notion point of view, POV, all the non-vascular plants is under the division Bryophyta. Okay? So they could be class Muscae, Hepaticaceae, Anthoceropiae. Okay? In the International Code of Nomenclature, they are known as the Bryopsida, Hepatopsida, and Anthoceropsida. Okay? How about on the splitters notion? So if the lumpers notion is focused on their similarity so that they will go under one division, with that of the splinters point of view, they will be focusing on their differences. So when they focus on their differences, there will be three divisions. That will be the bryophytes, hepatophytes and that of the Anthocerophyta. Okay? Okay, here. We have here the liverworts, hornworts, and then the mosses. So this cladogram shows or perceive actually the relationship between the phylogenetic relationship of these non-vascular plants. So you can see here, we show that the liverworts is the most primitive and that the hornworts is the most advanced among the three. And then as you can see here on this line, so it is the line that represents how similar the characteristics with all the land plants. But you can observe itong mga three, okay, three non-vascular plants na to, okay, they are emanating at or emerging from different points. So they actually have diverged in their respective branch from the main branch, kanya-kanya, at different course in time, and then that would be the one defining their group. Okay? So ito mga apomorphic characters. So they just stay away from the main branch, forming their own line. Okay? Their clade. Kaya ang itsura tuloy niya, they become polytomy. Okay? They now become polytomy. So that's why bryophytes, sorry, not polytomy, because they have a separate one, bryophytes are known to be paraphyletic. So in a sense that they cannot trace the common ancestor for their own group. That's why they are suggested to be paraphyletic when it comes to their relationship. However, there is a recent study, as I've said, in 2018, wherein they are saying that the bryophytes are actually monophyletic, okay, according to this study. So the reason for their monophyletic clade is because of the presence of the stomates. So stomates that is functional in sporangium dehiscence, yung line of splitting ng mga sporangium. Okay? So the stomates present in bryophytes are functional in sporangium dehiscence. Whereas, pagdating dito sa ibang group, the stomates functional in photosynthetic gas exchange. Okay? So, as you can see here, the stomates, okay, are divided into the sporangium dehiscent and then the stomates that is functional in their photosynthetic gas exchange. So as you can see here, this stomates also becomes now the defining characteristics between vascular, okay, this is the group of vascular and non-vascular plants. So they are already meeting at this point. So implying that they have a common ancestor, becoming monophyletic. Lalong-lalo na yung bryophytes. A while ago, it is paraphyletic. But after several years of study, you can see that the bryophytes are already monophyletic. And also, you can also see here that the one that you can observe that the hornworts here is now becoming the most primitive. And yung mosses naman becomes the most advanced. Okay? So, example of which is this hornwort Anthoceros. Anthoceros is an example of hornworts. They are considered now to be the most primitive. Okay? Anthoceros here is the representative genus of the hornwort. So, as you can see here, okay, we have here two parts. We have here the gametophyte that with embedded archegonia and antheridia. So this discoid gametophytes are the ones covering the rock. So itong mga hornworts na to are madalas nakikita nyo sa mga rocks, places na madalas matataas with a lot of water. Okay? So we call this part as the gametophytes. So they are the ones covering the rock. And then above that one, we have here it actually looks like protruding horn-like structure. They are known as the sporophytes. sporophytes. Okay, sporophytes. They actually maintain from the top to release the spores. So they contain mature sporangium that split opens its spores. So we have here a close-up picture of the what we call the hornwort or anthoceron. So you can see here the green patch covering the boulder or the rock or gametophyte. Tapos, emerging from this one are the horn-like structure, growing from the discoid gametophytes. And then here we have here the close-up photos ng gametophyte that is found attached to the rock and nag-e-emerge sa kanya yung mga sporophytes. Okay, here when we go with the hornworts, they have the following characteristic. We have here what we call the thalloid body. When we say thalloid body, the body is composed of similar cells. So in case here, it is composed of a single large chloroplast per cell. The hornwort also has a gametophyte stage and a sporophyte stage. Pag gametophyte stage, they are discoid and they are photosynthetic. Actually, hindi lang photosynthetic, they are highly photosynthetic. Whereas pagdating naman sa sporophyte, here are the following characteristics. So, it is photosynthetic with stomata, pero the stomata functions only for sporangium dehiscens. And then the sporophyte is also long and narrow, that splits lengthwise, and that would be the sporophyte. And then another characteristics, indeterminate growth due to intercalary meristem. Remember that the intercalary meristem is a region of meristematic cells again that is found in between the base of the, in between differentiated cells. Okay, they are mostly found in between differentiated cells. And lastly, the hornworts contain sporophyte that contains columella and pseudoelaters in the sporangium. Pag tinanong tayo, what is this columella? This is only the inner column of the cell. So we are talking about their structure. When we see pseudoelaters, they are actually a sterile cell. They usually combine with spores and then they release it into valves. Kung wala naman, so this, what we call pseudoelaters, or can actually change shape. Kaya siya pseudoelaters, diba? They are elaters without the thickening bonds. And for that one, they are able to change their shape as they dry out. And then they assist in the scattering the spores. So, ang pseudoelaters is said to be hygroscopic. Kasi nga, they are able to absorb moisture coming from the air. And then, hornworts are also primarily tropical in distribution. Ibig sabihin, sa tropical areas mo lang siya makikita. You won't be able to see this one to temperate regions. So, this is an example of a hornwort sporophyte is. Okay? You can see here the spores. And then, what you are seeing here, yung mga ribbon style na yan, we call that one as the strands of your pseudoelaters. And then we also have here the columella, kaya lang cut na dito which it contains long leaf, okay, of cells forming the spores. Okay, again, this is what we call the spores. And then here we have here the, what we call your pseudoelaters, yung mga ribbon-like shapes. So next, we also have here the stomata. So stomata usually found in hornworts. Okay, the one that is good about this one is stomata. They are functional in spore dehiscence. Okay, they function in spore dehiscence. And then now let's go with the liverworts. So liverworts is under the division Hepatophyta. There are around 8,000 species worldwide and it is still counting. Among the liverworts, there are actually two orders under which it is wherein it encompasses. So We have here the Mercantialis or the tyloid, and then the Juger manialis, which is the leafy liverworts. Okay, so the Mercantialis here actually is thalloid in its structure, the one that is found attached to the rocks. With that of the Juger manialis, they are said to be leafy. So they are actually small plants that is attached to the leaves. Hindi itong leaves na to, but this one. This is what we call the Juger manialis under the division Hepatophyta. So here we also have here a leafy Bassania, wherein they contain 3 rows of the leaves, wherein the lower is usually reduced. So this Bassania is our what we call liverworts. When we go with the reproduction and the liverworts, they are capable of reproducing both sexually and asexually. If we are talking about asexual reproduction, they do it because of the gemma cups. Okay, so this gemma cups contains gemmae. Okay, so this gemmae can germinate to become a new liverwort. Okay, and then we also have here the liverwort gametangia. So this is the sexual reproduction of the liverworts. So they produce this gametangia, the anteradiophores, and then the archegoniophores. Okay? So itong anteradiophores, as you can see here, yung mga umbrella-like. Ito naman yung mga deep lobe naman yung kanya, or flower-like in appearance, yung mismo mga lobe niyan. So inside that one, below that one, underneath this lobe, doon natin makikita yung mga anteridia. Also this one, sa loob niyan, or underneath that one, we can see the archegonia. Okay? So again, sa archegoniophores, we can see here the deep lobes and resembling flowers containing archegonia. Ito namang anteradiophores, they are actually looking like an umbrella. It looks like an umbrella, and then beneath that one, they bear the what we call the anteridia. So once the anteridia and that of the archegonia met, they could undergo fertilization. Okay, and then to produce new liverworts. So here is a close-up picture of how a Mercantia or liverwort will look like. Yung archegonium, as you can see here, we'll be able to see here the egg cell and then that of the long neck that is present. So, makita mo, diba, they are underneath each lobe. Okay? They are underneath each lobe. Again, this is archegonia. Okay, so this is actually a longitudinal side of archegoniophore that reveals a lot of archegonia. So bawat isa niyan, these are the archegonia. Okay, so remember the neck, and then we have here a passageway in between that where the egg cells could, the sperm cells can pass through. And then we have here the sporophyte of Mercantia. We have here the mature sporophyte. So the parts of which could be seen here. We have here the foot that is attached usually dun sa archegoniophore. And then we have here the seta, known as the short stalk. And then we also have here what we call the calyptra. Okay? So this calyptra is actually a protective tissue. Itong calyptra na to, these are protective tissue that develops from the point of development ng sporangium. So guys, when you remove the calyptra, okay, the sporophyte will not develop at all. Okay, kasi nga part siya ng development ng sporangium. So it will not develop at all once you remove the calyptra. So this is a highly important structure in the development of that of the sporophyte, by the way. So here we have here, once this is fertilized, the archegonium actually will develop to become this sporophyte that is capable containing this sporangium with elaters inside. itong ribbon ereters, ribbon-like shape ereters. That is also said to be hygroscopic. Okay? And then here we have here the archegonial heads. And then inside that one are the archegonia bearing the mature sporophytes or the spores. Here is another, what we call the archegonia. Okay? So here we have here the male and female gametophytes, yung mga anteridiophore, and that of the archegonia. Okay, now let's go with the mosses o yung division bryophyte. So just like the previous one, it also contains sporophyte and that of the gametophyte. Most of the moss actually are found in the high altitude forests. Kaya ang tawag doon are mossy forests because they are covered with mosses. And as I've said, they are only found on high tropical mountains. Yung mga matataas na yun nasa 1,000 meters above sea level. Okay. When we go with this mosses or yung the bryophytes, there are around 12,000 species of bryophytes. We can classify them into 4 classes. Pero some botanists, merong mga 9 classes, meron naman 5. But in the sake of our lecture for today, we have here the 4 classes of the bryophytes. Okay? So the first class is what we call the class Pagnopsida, which includes the peat mosses. So there are around 200 species of sphagnum. And then about 1% of the Earth's terrestrial surface is actually covered by sphagnum. And then we also have here the class Andreopsida, also known as the lantern mosses. It is known as lantern mosses because of the sporangium that looks like a lantern. And then we have here the class Polytrichiopsida and class Bryopsida, which is 95% of moss species. So yung pinakamarami yung mga under the class Bryopsida. And then we have here the sphagnum, also known as the peat moss. So these are the representative example of each classes. So usually plants make groundwater water acidic, forming extensive bogs. So or bogs. When we say bogs, they contain stagnant water. They are usually acidic at saka unoxygenated. Kaya nga they are anoxic. And this is how it looks like yung mga peat moss. They can cover most grounds. They appear to be solid, pero most of them are covering only a watery body. So we always should be careful when we are stepping on the peat moss. And then if we look at the structure here, this will be the sporophyte. And here, the leafy structure here is what we call the gametophyte. And then when we go with the uses of the peat, the partially decomposed sphagnum, they are mostly used in a potting media and used as a model. As a matter of fact, they can be a counterpart of firewood in tropical areas, since the sphagnum also has a high heat capacity that can be used for cooking if they are already dried. And then we also have here the peat found on the partially decomposed sphagnum. So we have here the Toland man. Okay? So the Toland man is a bug mummy dating from 405 to 100 BC. Ganun kataas, ganoon kagrabe yung preservation niya. So because of that, the peat can preserve organism in their natural form. You just imagine, ang date niya is 405 to 100 BC. Pero you can still see the important features of its face. Next, we also have here Andrea rupestris, o under the Andreopsida, also known as the lantern mosses. Pag sinabing rupestris, this is pertaining to the hook. Okay? So this Andreopsida can grow on actually rocks. And they are important because they are said to be one of the pioneer organism. And then just like the others, they do not have vascular tissue to convey nutrients needed by the body. Ito namang Dawsonia longifolia, okay? It represents yung mga largest mosses on Earth. And then, they are mostly very closely related na sila sa mga vascular plants because they contain leptoids at saka mga hydroids. Okay? So, yung mga leptoids and hydroids, yun yung mga analogous structure ng xylem and phloem. Next, we also have here the Spiridens reinwardti. Okay? So, pwede siya matawag na love tree kasi it's a lone, because this species actually is a large mass underclass Bryopsida. Okay? They actually attach on the trunks of the rocks. They have here the gametophyte, yung leafy part, and ito naman yung kanyang sporophyte stage. Here we have here the structure of mosses, so hindi naman nagkakahiwa-hiwalay with the other structures. So, by the way, the sporophytes are very dependent on gametophytes. The gametophytes are the leafy part, while the sporophyte yung merong stalk na part. So, we call this one as seta. Okay? Composed of sporogenous tissue. And then when we speak of the life cycle of the mosses, okay, so let's start with that of the gametophyte. Okay, so this gametophyte will actually form its gametangia. Okay, yung antheridium and that of the archegonia. And then we have here the sperms from the antheridium will actually go or swim towards that of the archegonia. Okay, so they swim by means of water and then they fertilize the egg. So once they fertilize the egg, the archegonia will be able to produce an embryo. So this embryo will grow, okay, will grow as a sporophyte. So this sporophyte is attached to the male gametophyte. Okay, so if we look at the parts, we have here the root. This is also known as the foot. We also have here the stipe or the seta. We call this one as the stalk. And then we have here the sporangium. Okay, that is covered by calyptra. Once we remove this calyptra, it will expose operculum. Okay, once you remove the operculum, it will expose what we call the peristome teeth. Okay, itong peristome teeth na to, these are the counterparts ng elaters and pseudo-elaters that I mentioned a while ago because it also has a hygroscopic structure. Now, what does it do? So, itong peristome teeth na to, by the release of this operculum inside, it will also be releasing the spores that will germinate into becoming this filamentous body known as protonema. Okay? It will develop into this protonema, and then eventually these buds here will develop and then grow into again a leafy gametophyte. So that's how the life cycle of the mosses will look like. So again, we have here some pictures of these spores, okay, that is actually thick-walled for the mosses that could produce what we call or that could germinate becoming the thallus or the filamentous body of protonema that actually produces this gametophyte. And then this gametophyte, remembering a while ago, it will be producing antheridium and archegonium. And then upon fertilization, it will lead to the production of what we call the sporophyte. And then the cycle lives on. Okay? And then here is another picture of the life cycle of mosses. For the last part of our topic, we have here the ecological and economic importance of mosses. So as we can see here, mosses are capable of inhabiting diverse and sometimes extreme environments, but they are especially common in moist forests and wetlands. So with that, they become an important role, or they play a very important role as pioneer organisms, since they are the organisms that are able to grow on rocks at saka mga trunks ng trees. And then, another importance is that some mosses might also help retain the nitrogen in the soil. Yung sphagnum or yung peat moss is an important global reservoir of organic carbon. Yung peat can be used as a source of fuel. And then here, itong low temp pH oxygen level, it inhibits decay of moss and other organism. And this is actually yung pinaka-ideal or striking habitat of mosses, having low temp pH and oxygen level. And lastly, over-harvesting of sphagnum or a drop of water in water level in peatlands could release stored carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, which is bad because it can contribute to the worsening of the global warming. All right, so this will be the end of our topic. Thank you for your attention.